Eric Mwather with another Uniformity video, and we're going to be taking a look at stocks that fell overnight and are reflecting drops in today's market action. So we're just going to go straight to the examples here as a follow-up to the previous Uniformity video. So here we're looking at a daily chart for FEYE. Let's go back and find that this here was the high, and so all we need to do is find where the RSI broke down, and coming off the high, which is a fact because we see that's exactly where the stock made a high before plunging. So we use that information that this break was very destructive for the stock, and off this level we draw a straight line, and we know from our uniformity that every time you come and touch this line with uniform activity above the line and back below it, you get a sell signal. So that is true there. Uniform activity above the line and back below it, which is this high there. And you can also see that there were other periods where the stock touched that level and stalled. But you can also see that in the recent days there was a slight move here, an attempt to break out, but it just came back to this RSI level of resistance and could not move above that. So that was an area to watch for potential reversal. What we see here is now the stock reflecting a big drop today, down about 14-15%. Let's go to another idea that was down overnight, SSYS. In this particular example, we see that this is where the RSI made a high and broke down, and the price made a high. We know the break took place when this trend line was broken, and ever since that break the stock has not been back to those levels. And so we know for a fact that the stock is telling us that RSI break was destructive, and we draw a straight line because we know that every time we find resistance on that level, we know that the stock is telling us this is probably an area where the stock could stall. Let's go and test this. You can see we went above the line and below it with uniform activity. It looks like a double top or an M type formation. It looks something like this, which is uniform activity. If you take that, it moved above the line and back below it. So that was a high there, and that was one of the reasons why it failed to hold highs and came down. We see that we went above the line and back below it with what seems like uniform activity here. Looks like a nice hump, and that was this break point. Once you moved above the line and came back and broke back below it, you see that was a sell point here. Short term, the stock did drop, not much, but it did drop. Subsequently, we come back here and break back below the line, which is this short term high, and recently we've come back, hit that line twice with a double top, and we see that overnight that resistance was confirmed with a drop. So the market seems to be respecting that level of resistance, and if we use uniformity, everything seems to make sense on this chart, hence the sell-off. Let's go to another idea. Overnight, NUS down 18-19%, maybe even more, and this one is very simple to see that this was the high, and so we go figure out where did this stock break down. Use the stock's own trading history to tell you how to trade it, and we can see that the RSI broke down there. So this trend line break, and the stock is telling us that this is where the stock ran into trouble, this is where it became sick, this is where things just did not and don't work out for the stock. So here we are testing that principle. We see that previously we have held up and failed to move above the blue line, which is this area here. Failure to hold above the line subsequently led to this drop, major drop. Came close to that line there and failed, which is that high. You can see uniform activity above the line, back below it, and also uniform activity above the line, back below it, which is this high around 55. And once this is confirmed, over the last couple of days before today's move, you can see the stock had already formed a sell signal, because the last couple of days formed uniformity above the line and back below it, like that. So that was coming into earnings season here, that this reversal had already been shown by the stock, and the fact that it was uniform activity above the line, back below it, was some type of a warning signal. And you can see that being consistent with our analysis of uniformity, that led to resistance being confirmed and a price plunge. Take a look at another example here, ACI. Now this one hasn't dropped, but I just want to show you how things look like here. Here's an example of a stock coming back to a declining 50-day moving average. We know for a fact that that's the 52-week high on the chart. Let's go and find out where it broke down. And you can see that the break was the RSI break here, was responsible for the stock dropping on this chart from about $5.25 all the way to close to $1. So we take this information, draw a straight line, and we know for a fact that if, as previously seen here, once we come to the line and show reversal close to the line, that's a high. So the stock is trading at a very precarious point. If it starts showing resistance on the line here, expect there to be a sharp move, or at least a move lower. It doesn't have to be sharp, but what I'm saying here is any resistance being confirmed here on the RSI on a daily could suggest that more than likely prices are going to be trending lower in the coming days. Take a look at PXD, which is down overnight, and what you see here is coming off the highs. The RSI broke down somewhere here, so that's what the stock is telling us. So we draw a straight line, and you can see over the last couple of days we hit that and stalled. Very easy to identify, and since then the stock is down a lot, from about 190 now trading in the lower 170s, and maybe there could be more, but the fact that the previous sell point here, which was what began this drop in price, was being tested, it failed, and then we see the move lower. Let's go to another, CHUY, down about 30%. That's a big drop. So let's go see what happened here. We see this is the high, and the break point took place somewhere there. That break of the RSI, that break is what started this slide, and eventually even lower and lower. So we know that the break point took place there. We draw a straight line, something like that, maybe even slightly higher. So the line can be drawn somewhere like that. You can see resistance. Oops, let me draw that again. So there was a RSI break. We are using the stock to tell us where to draw these lines, and here we are, failed to hold above that level. Sell signal previously led to this drop. Again, we come back here, we try and hold, we fail to hold, we break below the line, which is this highs here at about 32, and also recently we came very close to the line there, but could not even reach as high as the line, and that was, on hindsight, something to consider. And since then we see that the stock has seen a complete collapse. Now let's go and find out short-term sell signal, and I'll show you another trick. Is if you take the break point of this trend line, so there was a trend line break short-term somewhere there, which is this high, and a shallow pullback. You can see that if you draw a straight line off that, you draw it correctly, something like that. We had uniform activity above that break point short term and back below it. So that uniform activity here above that blue line and back below it was a sell signal short term. So depending on how you looked at it, there was also signs of the stock not looking great. There's also something else I can observe here. you can see that here we made a higher high in price, but the technicals made a lower low. So that was also another subtle warning signal. Also, let's take that off and show you another. So there was another short-term high here and a drop. Let's find out where this began, and it began by this break. If you take the lows line, that break point coincides also with this stall point. It went above the line and back below it with uniform activity. That was a sell signal recently here. And so the plunge today makes a lot of sense, and you can also see that has been confirmed by a break of this RSI trend line. So in the future, should the stock at some point come and stall, so you know this is a recent break, you draw a straight line. If the stock comes back over time and shows uniform activity to the line and back below it, something like, for example, inverted V-type formation, that's going to be a sell signal short term. So watch out for that uniformity even short term on instruments after they've seen a collapse. Let's take a look at one more, and it is a TRIP, which is down about 14%. Let's go find out where the sell signal began, and we see that coming off the high. So coming off this high there, see whether the break point took place. It's connecting the lows. We get that it comes to somewhere around there. So connecting this RSI lows on the daily. Now all these are daily charts on this example. You can use this on weekly charts, monthly charts, hourly charts to find sell signal. So here we see that previously the previous break coming off the highs on the RSI was here. We draw a straight line. Now you didn't do this, I didn't do this. This is perfect uniformity. It went to the line and did a uniformity type formation above the line, back below it, and that happens to be a short-term high. So let's draw that again. So there was a break, something like that. So resistance and this short-term high. So already we had seen a short-term sell signal. Now we can go and find out the most recent sell signal or find another sell signal on the stock, because sometimes the stock will have more than one. And so there was another break of this RSI around the 50, and that break point was responsible for this move here. We draw a straight line. So around the 50, and take note of this uniform activity above that blue line, the most recent blue line, and back below it, which is this sell signal. So every time you see uniform activity above and below, or below and above a recent sell signal point, which in this example is here, this uniform activity was telling you that this was a trap, and this is exactly what happened here. So now let's test that. Every time we come to this blue line around the 50 and stall, we make a short-term high. We come around the 50 and stall, we make a short-term high. And over the last couple of days, we've come back to that general area around the 50 and stalled. So before today's plunge, you can see that the stock was telling you that it had confirmed resistance on multiple occasions over a period of a week or so, showing resistance in price, but more importantly, showing uniformity resistance on the line that was a previous break. So this previous break here, this level had been resistance recently, and so before today's plunge, you can see that anybody watching that would have known there's a possibility of this leading to lower prices, and it doesn't always work out like that, but in this particular example, it's an ideal example of what happens when you have resistance on uniformity RSI. Stocks can easily plunge. Eric Moade, good luck, peace, and blessings. Woo!